Welcome to Lecture 6. These are our learning objectives for this lecture. We're going to be looking at molecules and chemical bonds, and then chemical reactions. So starting with chemical bonds are energy relationships between electrons of reacting atoms. They're not actual physical structures, it's just a relationship. Electrons are the subatomic particles that are involved in the chemical reactions. They determine whether a chemical reaction will take place, and if so, what type of chemical bond is formed. So a little bit of review from the last lecture. The electrons, let me get my little pointer here. The electrons can occupy areas around the nucleus called the electron shells. Each shell contains electrons that have a certain amount of kinetic and potential energy. So shells are often referred to as energy shells or energy levels. Depending on the size, an atom can have up to 7 electron shells. Shells can hold only a specific number of electrons. The shells closest to the nucleus is filled first and continues outwards. So from last time we said shell number 1 holds a maximum of 2 electrons. Shell 2 holds a maximum of 8. Shell 3 holds a maximum of 18, and so on. Free radicals are highly reactive atoms containing one or more unpaired electrons in the outermost energy level, causing the atoms to gain, lose, or share electrons with other atoms to achieve stability. So the outermost electron shell is called the valence shell, and the electrons out there are called the valence electrons. Those have the most energy because they're farthest from the nucleus. And those are the electrons that are going to determine if that atom is able to make a chemical reaction. The octet rule. Atoms in the outer shell, or the valence shell, tend to have 8 electrons, except for 2. Hydrogen only has 1, and helium only has 1 electron shell and has 2 electrons. So hydrogen has 1 electron in the shell, helium has 2 electrons in the shell. Higher than that, that means it's above 3 protons, or 3 protons or more, which are going to cause that to have the second electron shell. So fulfilling the maximum number of electrons in the valence shell is the driving force behind the chemical reactions. What that means basically is if the valence shell is full, so if there's only the first shell, it has to have the 2 in there. If it's full and it has 2 on the outer shell, that atom is content and it won't want to bond with any other ones. If it has the second electron shell, then that one will need to have 8 electrons in it. If it has the 8, it will be stable. It won't want to either take electrons from someone else or give electrons. An example of the stable ones are the noble gases. They already have 8 valence electrons, so they're not chemically reactive. So when we say stable, that would be chemically inactive. Unstable would be chemically reactive. Most atoms don't have full valence shells. So most of the atoms are going to want to gain or lose or share electrons and form bonds. They do that so that they can either take electrons from another one or give electrons so that they get back down to a full valence shell. So the goal to be stable is to have a full valence shell. This one illustrates the atomic structure of 2 elements that are chemically inert or stable, helium and neon. These are inert or stable elements because their outermost energy level, their valence shell, is complete. So helium has 2 electrons. It only has 1 valence shell, and it's got 2 in it. So that means it's full, It's not wanting to do anything. It's stable. Neon has 2 in the first shell and 8 in the second shell. So that's complete. It's not going to want to try to take electrons or give electrons to form chemical bonds. So these are not going to be very reactive elements. They're considered stable. These elements are reactive elements. So that means they're not stable. Their outermost energy level valence shell is incomplete. For instance, hydrogen. It has the electron shell and it only has 1 electron. So it's going to be running all over the place trying to either grab another electron off someone or share its electron with someone to become stable. Carbon has the first 2 on its inner shell and has 4 on its outer shell. So this is not stable because it needs 8 on its outer shell to be stable. So same thing, it's going to want to go around and either take or give some of its electrons on its outer shell. Oxygen, 2 on its inner, and it has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on its outer. So it's either going to want to take 2 electrons from someone else or share 2 with someone, and so on. All right, so now we know that if the outer shell is complete, it's not going to want to bond with anything else. But if it's not complete, it will want to bond with someone else. Those are reactive. So how will they bond? There's 3 different types: ionic, covalent, and hydrogen bonds. So let's take a look. Ionic bonds, the ions are atoms that have gained or lost electrons and become charged. The number of protons does not equal the number of electrons. Ionic bonds involve the transfer of valence shell electrons from one atom to another, resulting in ions. So, in other words, one element or atom comes up and takes electrons from the other atom, or it gives electrons to the other atom. They're not sharing at all. And in that, they become 2 ions. One is a negative charge ion, which is an anion. That's the one that gained more electrons. So it took on more negativity. That's an anion. The one that becomes a cation is the positive charge, the atom that lost an electron. So it gained more positivity. I always remember this because cats are pretty and they're positive. Anions is like not having something, so negative. Attraction of opposite charges results in an ionic bond. Let's look more into that. All right, so this figure has 3 parts. Part A over here, it's showing the sodium atom, atomic symbol Na, and a chlorine atom, atomic symbol Cl. The sodium atom has 11 protons, 12 neutrons, and 11 electrons. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 1 electron on the 3rd shell. So that would cause this to be unstable because we need to have 8 on that shell for it to be stable. All right, chlorine is the other atom here. It has 17 protons, 18 neutrons, and 17 electrons. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Going to the outer, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So sodium has 1 electron on its outer shell. Chlorine has 7 on its outer shell. So they're both going to be reactive. They're both going to be looking to give or take an electron. So what happens is the sodium atom actually gives up its loner electron in its valence shell to the chlorine. and fills up its valence shell. So since it does that, both become stable. So from them, sodium giving up an electron and chlorine taking that electron, okay, this result is a cation. So we got a cation sodium with a positive charge, giving us a chlorine that is a negative charge, an anion. And positives tend to go with negatives. The opposites attract. So what happens is the chlorine and the sodium combine to form table salt, sodium chloride. And that's an ionic bond. When one atom takes an electron and gives it to the other atom, so that you get two ions, positive and a negative, and then those kind of like attract each other, and together they become sodium chloride. So most ionic compounds are salts, and when dry, salts form a crystal instead of individual molecules. This is sodium chloride. It's multiple little sodium chlorides, and it forms a crystal. Okay, the other type of bond is covalent bonds. Covalent bonds are formed by sharing of two or more valence shell electrons between two atoms. All right, now this is going to be option one. You can have sharing of two electrons. This goes and forms a single bond. Sharing of 4 electrons forms a double bond. And sharing 6 electrons forms a triple bond. And we'll look at that in a little bit. The more pairs of electrons that are shared, the stronger the bond. So a triple bond is stronger than a single bond. This allows each atom to fill its valence shell at least part of the time. The two types of covalent bonds are polar and nonpolar covalent bonds. All right, so let's look at this diagram. This diagram shows a structure of reacting atoms and the resulting molecules. So these are the reacting atoms, and this is the result. So we have 4 hydrogen atoms here and 1 carbon atom. A hydrogen atom has 1 electron in its valence shell. Each one of these hydrogen atoms are like that. The carbon atom has 4 electrons in its valence shell. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it needs 4 more electrons to be stable. When a carbon atom shares 4 electrons with hydrogen atoms, 4 of them, they form a molecule of methane gas. So what ends up happening is the structural formula, the structural formula is CH4. And so what happens is one of these hydrogen come over here, and it's going to share its hydrogen, the 1 electron, with this 1 electron that carbon had already there. So pretty much the hydrogen and the carbon are going to share both of those, so that the hydrogen thinks it has 2 in its electronic shell, and the carbon thinks it has 2 right there in that shell. And when each one of those hydrogens go to that other electron that was missing, that needed another one, now when they attract and they group up like that, where they're sharing that electron, well, now the hydrogens are content because they're feeling like they have 2 in their outer shell, and the carbon is content because it's got access to 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons in its outer shell. So when it shares 2 like that, that is a single bond. And we write that in the structural formula like this. So the C is in the middle, carbon, and then a dash or one single line represents they're sharing 2 electrons. So that's called a single bond, and a C is connected to an H, all the way around like this, and that's how you would write that. So they're sharing that one. So once again, an ionic bond gives or takes, a covalent bond shares the electrons. All right, so this is how it works again. We have, you can get a formation of a double covalent bond. So this is where two oxygen atoms share two electron pairs. So here we have an oxygen atom. It has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one also has 6. So if they get together and share those, now it's sharing 4 electrons. So when it's 4, we would write the O's like this, connected by 2 bars, because it's a double bond. Okay, now double bonds are stronger than single bonds like the other one. You can also form a triple bond. For instance, nitrogen. Nitrogen has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 electrons in its outer shell. And if you get 2 nitrogens together, they can share 3 each. So that gives 3, 4, 5, and then the other 3 is 8. So it's got 8 in the shell. So that would form a N2, 2 nitrogens stuck together. So they're sharing those electrons. So when there's 3 sets or 6 electrons, that's when you get a triple bond. And a triple bond is stronger than a double bond. The bigger the bond, the stronger the bond. Nonpolar covalent bonds. These are equally sharing of electrons between atoms, resulting in electrically balanced nonpolar molecules, such as CO2. Stronger bonds than polar covalent bonds. All right, let's take a look at that. This diagram is the molecular model of carbon dioxide molecule, symbolized as CO2. So this is the carbon and the 2 oxygens. A carbon is sandwiched between 2 oxygen atoms, one on each side, forming the carbon dioxide molecule that is linear and symmetrical. Its structural formula is represented by C in the middle with an O on each side. Each oxygen is connected to a central carbon by 2 parallel horizontal lines, indicating it's a double bond. A carbon dioxide molecule is nonpolar. All right, polar covalent bonds. This is the unequal sharing of electrons between 2 atoms. Results in electrically polar molecules. These atoms have different electron attracting abilities, leading to unequal sharing. So atoms with greater electron attracting ability are electronegative, and those with less are electropositive. So water, also called H2O, is a polar molecule. Oxygen is more electronegative, so that exerts a pull on shared electrons, giving it a partial negative charge and giving the hydrogen a partial positive charge. Having 2 different charges is referred to as dipole. Let's take a look. So this diagram is a diagram of water, H2O. The AV, it's the V-shaped water molecule, has 2 poles of charge. The oxygen here in the middle has more of a slightly negative charge on this end. And on this side of the molecule, it has a slightly positive charge. Okay, so its structural formula is made by the O with a slightly downward line to the H. So it's like an upside down V. Each H is connected to an O by a single line, indicating it's a single bond. The water molecule is V-shaped and is polar. So polar means that you have a negative side over here and a positive side. It's going to make it want to attract to other things. All right, so let's summarize this. Ionic bonds, complete transfer of electrons. They either take electrons or give off electrons. It creates separate ions, charged particles. So you have a positive ion called a cation, a negative ion called an anion. Those negative and positive charge opposites attract each other, and then you get a mixture. Polar covalent bonds is unequal sharing of electrons. So the charge is unbalanced among the atoms. The molecule has a slightly positive charge and a slightly negative charge. As in water, the upside down V, where it's kind of negative over here, it's more positive over here. So that would be polar because of this layout on how this over here is more negative and this over here is more positive. It's going to be polar, so it's going to want to get attracted to something else. Nonpolar covalent, equal sharing of electrons, the charge balanced among the atoms, and you get a linear symmetrical, and this is nonpolar. The third is hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are an attractive force between electropositive hydrogen of one molecule and an electronegative atom of another molecule. It's not a true bond, it's more of a weak magnetic attraction. It's very common between dipoles such as water, and that's what makes water want to stick to itself. It has a three-dimensional shape. I'm sure in middle school or high school you did some experiments with water and you got to see how they would stick to each other. And that's the reason this is happening, because of those hydrogen bonds. Here's a little video you can watch. So this is what I was talking about. This is showing how 5 water molecules associated with each other via hydrogen bonds. Okay, so you have the oxygens and the hydrogens. You have the negative polarity and the positive polarity over here. This is 5 water molecules close together. The slightly positive ends of some of the water molecules align with the slightly negative ends of the others. So they'll rearrange each other to where the negative is facing the positive. Here the negative is facing the positive to negative. Remember, opposites attract. That tends to make the water molecules cling to each other. So hydrogen bonds are responsible for the resulting surface tension of water. So here on this little picture, you can see an insect called a water strider, which is literally walking on water. The combined strength of those hydrogen bonds and the water molecules produces a strong surface tension in that water on the pond. As a result of that, that water strider can walk on the surface of the pond. A close-up picture also shows that the legs dimpled in the water, but it does not break through. That's totally because of the strength of those hydrogen bonds. All right. Covalent bonds, this is a little summary again. Covalent bonds, ionic bonds, and hydrogen bonds. Covalent bonds, sharing of the pairs of electrons, may be polar or nonpolar. Those are the strongest type of chemical bonds. Next is ionic bonds. This is an attraction between two oppositely posed ions, because remember, it either gives away electrons or takes them. This is intermediate, so the middle of the pack on strength. And hydrogen bonds, these are attractions between those charges on the water molecules, positive and negative. So this is the weakest type of bond. Combining matter, molecules and compounds. Most atoms chemically combine with other atoms to form molecules and compounds. So a molecule is a general term for 2 or more atoms bonded together. So that would be like H2 or O2. The same ones, multiple of the same. A compound is a specific molecule that has 2 or more different kinds of atoms bonded together. So that would be like the H2O, or glucose, C6H12O6. Different kinds is a compound. So molecules with only one type of atom H2 or O2 is a molecule. Compounds are different types. Most matter exists as mixtures, two or more components that are mixed or intermixed. These basic types of mixtures are called solutions, colloids, or suspensions. Let's take a look at those. Three basic types of mixtures. We have solutions, colloids, and suspensions. So a solution is the solute particles are very tiny. You won't see them. They don't settle or scatter light. So the example of that would be mineral water. Just looks like clear liquid. A colloid, the solute particles are larger than in a solution and do scatter light. That's why you see the color. But it definitely looks like, it's still just a solution, but because it has color, it scatters light. Example is Jello. A suspension, the solute particles are very large, they do settle out, and they may or may not scatter light. Example of that is blood. So it will settle out. All right. Solutions. These are homogeneous mixtures, meaning the particles are evenly distributed throughout, so you won't see little specks of anything. The solvent is the greatest amount in there. So the solvent is usually water. That's called the universal solvent. The solute is whatever substance is dissolved in the solvent. It's present in very small amounts. Example of that would be blood sugar. Glucose is the solute, and blood plasma is the solvent. True solutions are very transparent, or you can see through them. Example is air. It's a gas solution, multiple different things in it, but you can't see individual ones. Salt solution. If you put salt in water and boil it, it'll just be a clear liquid. And a sugar solution. Most solutions in the body are true solutions of gas, liquids, or solids and dissolved in water. So that would be a solution. Next one is a colloid, also known as an emulsion. These are heterogeneous mixtures, meaning that particles are not evenly distributed throughout the mixture. You can see large solute particles in the solution, but they don't settle out. So sometimes when you're stirring this, you'll see little specks, but it won't gather at the bottom. But it does give like a cloudy or a colorful or a milky look. Some undergo sol-gel solution to a gel transformation, such as Jello. Goes from a liquid to a gel. And the cytosol of the cell is also a sol-gel type solution. So that is a colloid. Next is suspension. These are heterogeneous mixtures that contain large visible solutes that do settle out. So this you're going to see the solvent, which is the water or the plasma, and then you're going to see the specks of stuff, the solute particles. These will actually settle when you stop stirring. Example would be a mixture of water and sand. If you put water, then you put sand in there, that sand's never going to dissolve. While in suspensions, the solute never dissolves either. It's considered a suspension because it's left in the tube. It's suspending. Those little solute particles are suspended in there. They don't dissolve. All right, what's the difference between mixtures and compounds? There is three main differences. Unlike compounds, mixtures do not involve chemical bonding between components. Mixtures can be separated by physical means, such as straining or filtering. Compounds can be separated only by breaking their chemical bonds. Mixtures can be heterogeneous or homogeneous. Compounds are only homogeneous. Chemical reactions. Chemical reactions occur when the chemical bonds formed, rearranged, or broken. These reactions can be written in symbolic forms called chemical equations. Chemical equations contain reactants, which these are the substances entering into the reaction, and the product. These are the substances that are coming out of the product. The amount of reactants and products are shown in balanced equations. So let's take a look at that better. So here we have compounds are represented as molecular formulas. Example, water or sugar or H2 or CH4. Subscript numbers indicate how many atoms are joined by bonds. So when the number is after the letter, these two are joined by bonds. So this would be H2. There's an H and then a line and then an H. Prefix numbers means they're not joined. So if it's 4H or 2H, that would be two separate hydrogen ions. Okay, so once again, H2 means they're connected. 4H or 2H would mean they're separate. They're not connected. Then we have reactants and products. So when you're adding two things together, the reactants are what you're putting into the solution or into the equation. When that reacts together, what it forms is the product. So two hydrogen ions reacts to form, and this little sign here is like a yields. So H plus H equals or yields gives you H2 hydrogen gas. 4 hydrogen ions plus 1 carbon yields CH4 methane. Types of chemical reactions. There's 3 main types. The first is a synthesis reaction. Combination reactions involve atoms or molecules combining to form larger, more complex molecules. These are used in anatomy in our anabolic building processes. So for instance, over here, a synthesis reaction would be smaller particles are bonded together to form larger, more complex molecules. An example, all these single amino acids are joined together to form a protein molecule. So you're synthesizing something, you're forming something from multiple. So this is how these are wrote out. A plus B yields AB. They're connected. The second kind is decomposition. Decomposition reactions involve breaking down of a molecule into smaller molecules or its constituent atoms. Reverse of synthesis reactions. These involve catabolic or bond-breaking reactions, where AB, something that's together, goes into the reaction and it comes out separate. An example of that is glycogen is broken down to release glucose molecules. So here you have this large glycogen molecule. If all these come off, now you have separate glucose molecules. Exchange reactions, also called displacement reactions, involve both synthesis and decomposition. Bonds are both made and broken. They exchange their partners, basically. AB plus C goes into the reaction, and they exchange their partners. AC plus B comes out. Or AB plus CD goes in, and AD plus CB comes out. They exchange their partners. ATP transfers its terminal phosphate group. Okay, so this is ATP. It gives its phosphate group over to glucose. So it exchanged something. In living systems, these reactions are also referred to as reduction oxidation or redox reactions. Atoms are reduced when they gain electrons and oxidized when they lose electrons. So this is glucose plus 6 oxygen yields 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 water plus ATP. So glucose here is oxidized and oxygen is reduced. All the chemical reactions are theoretically reversible. So whatever goes this direction should be able to go that direction. Chemical equilibrium occurs if neither direction is more dominant. So if it can just keep going back and forth and nothing is like making it stay over here and nothing's making it go this way, it would be considered an equilibrium. Many biological reactions are not very reversible. This is because either it took energy to get them to go forward, or they don't have things that they need to go backwards. There's just usually one direction in biological reactions. The rate. Chemical reactions can be affected by different things. Temperature. Increased temperature usually increases the rate, so it speeds it up. The concentration of reactants, so the concentration or the strength of the things you put into the equation usually increase the rate, speed it up. Particle size, smaller particles usually increase the rate. And then we have catalysts. These are increasing the rate without being chemically changed or becoming part of the product. So enzymes are our catalysts in our body. So catalysts are like an outside substance that does not become part of the reaction, but it definitely speeds it up. And this is where we'll start on our next lecture.